Am I the asshole for not apologizing to the person I used to bully? I, 22 am not a bully. I had friends growing who were bullied. I saw how bad it could be on someone and never wanted to be the cause of that. I'll try to portray the incident as best I can. I was visiting my parents and went into town to run a few errands. In town, I was approached by a man I didn't recognize. He was initially friendly and greeted me with, "Hey, are you, my name?" Me. "Yeah, I am. Do we know each other?" Drew. "I'm Drew Smith. We used to go to school together." Despite him saying otherwise, I couldn't recall anyone by that name. I responded, "Hey, I'm really sorry, man, but I don't think I recognize you at all." I then started chuckling a bit out of embarrassment since I didn't know how else to react. I guess Drew didn't like that very much since his whole demeanor changed pretty quickly. He then asked me much more coldly, "Oh, then I guess you also don't remember how you used to treat me like shit when we were kids, huh?" That completely caught me off guard, and I couldn't respond with anything besides a confused, "What?" Drew then started going off on me, claiming that I would purposefully exclude him when we were kids. I had convinced others to do the same and that teachers had to forcefully assign him during group projects because no one would willingly accept him. That no one would play with him during recess or after school, so he had no friends growing up, and it was all my fault. I was utterly shocked and denied it, stating I had never done that because I hadn't. This just made him madder, and he started accusing more loudly, saying things like, "Yes, you fucking did," and, "Why don't you just fucking admit it already and just apologize?" By this point, we were getting people's attention, and I was afraid someone would call the cops. I decided to leave, but felt like I needed to get a jab in and said, "Look, man, I'm sorry school was so shitty for you, but if you were anything like you are now, you probably deserved it." In hindsight, I really should have just walked away, but I was getting angry myself, and it felt good at the moment. Drew started yelling after me even louder, but luckily he didn't try to follow me. When I got to my parents' home, I told them what had happened. They were surprised about the whole exchange too, and couldn't recall any friend of mine named Drew either. My mom then started teasing me a bit, saying I've always been pretty reserved, and if I was ever a dick to someone, they probably had it coming. Despite the reassurance, I can't help but feel kinda guilty about the whole exchange. Drew was absolutely convinced that I was his childhood bully for some reason, despite me not remembering him at all. Seeing how worked up about it he got, should I have just pretended to apologize or something? It seemed to me like it would have at least avoided that whole fiasco, even if I'm sure I had nothing to do with it. Was I the asshole in how I handled the situation? Edit. I was asked by some users to include that Drew never mentioned the school we went to together, just that we were classmates. Also that he only got my middle name right, not first or last. I haven't gone by my middle name since I was 6 or 7. Edit 2. Another user, previous comedian 4263 brought up kindergarten in an offhand way and it made me realize I do know Drew. We met in kindergarten where we initially started off as friends. I was also friends with a girl by the name of Alex. She also happened to be Drew's cousin. Like a few months into the year he started being a total shithead towards her, such as pulling her hair or trying to touch her to annoy her. I stopped being friends with him almost immediately and had nothing to do with him. The teacher tried to get me to be friends with him again, but I played up a language barrier between us to make her think I didn't understand her. She eventually dropped it. Other kids started doing the same because Drew started throwing massive screaming tantrums whenever he didn't get his way. Eventually, no one wanted to be friends with him anymore and he was pulled from the class. That's why he only got my middle name right, because I started going by a new name the next year. I can't believe this all started over something I did as a 5-year-old. Edit. Hey, thanks a lot everyone for the judgments. It gave me a lot to think about. Ultimately I think I'm going to agree with the "everyone sucks here" comments. Drew shouldn't have yelled at me like that, but I could have easily handled it way better than I did. Especially as I had the chance to make a clean break but instead chose to get my hands bloody with my last comment. There's no right circumstance to ever say someone deserves to be bullied. I apologize to anyone I may have offended with my last comment or what it could be taken to imply. I think I'm gonna sleep on it a little further, not really sure how to feel about the memories the whole thing brought up. There was a story like this a few months ago. A girl was accusing her BF's sister of being her bully. The sister thought she was losing her mind because she didn't remember at all. She held her ground and the girlfriend eventually admitted she was blaming the wrong person. I think if you really were a bully, you wouldn't be trying so hard to figure out what actually happened. Not the asshole. Forget about this crazy person. Not the asshole. Sounds like a fucking nut. Not the asshole, though you maybe shouldn't have twisted the knife. It sounds like Drew has serious residual issues from childhood, is angry, and may need help. A lot of times, apathy or just anonymity feels oppressive to really lonely children. Interactions and moments you wouldn't register, they read as you judging and shaming them. That's not your fault. It's probably the fault of the people who raised Drew. You could have apologized, but it might not have helped. That kind of hurt doesn't go away just because someone who was on the fringe of your trauma says sorry. Not the asshole. Maybe he mistook you for someone else. My guess is that had you apologized it would have amped him up even more. For what it's worth, I was the class scapegoat all through grade school and bullied mercilessly by boys and girls alike. If I met any over those people now, I'd shake their hand and buy them a beverage of their choice. Because I got bigger. There's really no possible way for us to judge this without knowing who's right. If you truly never bullied him, then your response to being falsely accused and yelled at was appropriate. If you did bully him and don't remember it, then he was in the right. Everyone here is just guessing which version is true and assigning blame accordingly. Am I the asshole for not getting more involved in my daughter's college fund situation? I have 2 children, a daughter Sam, 17 female, and a son, 19 male, and I have always made sure that their education is a top priority. My son is already off at school and doing very well, and Sam was accepted into her desired college school and program. My mom promised to pay for her entire education a long time ago, including tuition and accommodation. Everyone was overjoyed with this. However, after my divorce several years ago, Sam started to prioritize my ex-wife's family during every season. Sam decided to visit her mom's side of the family instead of spending time with mine. We always told there's a lot more people there and the food is so much better. Can't argue with the fact that her extended family was there, but I don't think an hour with grandparents is asking too much. This all upset my mother and strained their relationship. 2 weeks ago, she called me to tell me that she would no longer be paying for Sam's education. She felt that Sam had put her own family second and didn't treat her like she mattered at all. I hate to say it, but I also can't argue with that. Since then, Sam has taken full view of what college is going to look like for her. She will likely need to rethink her dream school and major. On top of that, the loans will be an anchor in her life. She asked me to help, and I certainly will when I can, but when her mother and I divorced, she got all the college accounts and used that to fund her house. This is old news, but I feel very relevant. While I feel bad for my daughter, I do not feel responsible for my mother's actions. She made the choice to stop supporting Sam's education, and I cannot force her to change her mind. I have spoken to my mother and tried to reason with her, but she is firm in her decision. I have also told Sam that she brought this on herself for treating her grandmother less than the rest of her family. Sam is understandably upset and feels like she is being punished for wanting to spend time with her mom's side of the family. However, I believe that she is old enough to understand the consequences of her actions and make decisions for herself. As a parent, I have always taught my children to take responsibility for their choices, and I feel that this situation is no different. So, Reddit, am I the asshole here? Should have I gotten more involved? And #X200B. Edit. I think I am done here. I will be taking all you have had to say into account. I will speak to my mother and daughter once again. Together as one unit. I will make sure Sam knows how her actions have consequences and my mother as well, but perhaps neither of them are wrong. I want to point out how mean some of you are. I have lived in the States for many years now. It is not common for children or parents to act as if another is dead. Many of you keep saying, "Don't be surprised when your child no longer speaks to you." Is this really common in your lives? Because to me it is unheard of. I talk to my children often. You really need to get in touch with the outside world. This online place is good for a lot, but please remember that it is a controlled environment. It is not real. Others keep calling Sam a child. I assume this is cultural differences. To me, Sam is not a child and she has not been for a while. She is not an adult, but she is not a child either. We expect people to be aware of their actions. We let 16-year-old drive cars, which is very dangerous, 18-year-olds fight wars, and leave 12-year-olds in charge of toddlers for money. You need to really think of what ages to you. I guess that could be my culture though. I had to work when I was a child to bring money in for food. And #X200B. Thank you all. Not the asshole. Your ex needs to refund her college account. I don't understand why no one has issues with the fact she misappropriated her college fine so extended family could have a free house. Not the asshole. You tried to talk to your mom on her behalf and that didn't work. And her mom used her college money to buy a house. A lesson to others: put the money in a 579 fund so that it cannot be taken out by the parents for their own use. A lesson for your daughter: she is not entitled to any money from grandma if she ghosts her and spends all her time with the other side of the family. My kids were written out of my mother's will because they never visited her. Not the asshole. Sam is facing the consequences of basically cutting her grandmother out of her life, as very few people wants to pay for a stranger's education. You tried to speak with both Sam and your mother and they both used their free will to do what they wanted. There was a college fund, but Sam's mom used it to buy a house. I suggest Sam take up her lack of funds with your ex. Get her to pay her back what was in her fund. Not the asshole, she hasn't learned the rule yet. The golden rule. Those who have the gold make the rules. Not the asshole. The only person who should be equally responsible for Sam's college education finance is her mother. Particularly because she used that fund to buy her house. That completely makes her mom the asshole here. While it was great that your mom offered to pay for Sam's college, that is 100% your mom's decision, not yours. You tried to reason with your mom to no avail. There really isn't anything else you can do here. I'm sure you're helping where you can, financially. But you can only do what you can. I agree with your mom here. If Sam completely neglected seeing her grandparents, they have every right not to give that person a penny. Am I the asshole for refusing to go out and celebrate my stepson's first words? My 36M wife, Fran, 35F, and I have been married for 4 years. We have a beautiful home and a healthy daughter, 3F, and we're doing amazing. Also, my wife has a son, Nick, 17M. His father is out of the picture, never really was, so Nick has been part of our family since the beginning, without distinction to our daughter. Nick is on the spectrum. He's non-verbal or non-speaking, as my wife says, but he has always been great at communicating effectively with Fran, and he's doing better every day. To my understanding, i.e., what my wife tells me, Nick is able to communicate via his phone and his AAC communication device, but he is still considered non-verbal because he has considerable difficulties with verbalization. Well, it turns out that, a week ago, Nick said his first fully formed words. He mumbled something along the lines of, "I love you." That's great, and I'm incredibly happy about it. The issue is that my wife, who was overflowing with joy, wanted to celebrate that very same week and go out and have a fancy dinner with us, her sister, and her mother. It was a Friday night, and honestly, I didn't feel like going out and I wasn't in the mood to celebrate, but I said, "Okay, sure, let's go," to please my wife. However, Fran thought I was in a bad mood, and she kept teasing me about being grumpy. So I teased her with, "Well, we didn't celebrate our daughter's first words, did we?" And that started a big argument. After that, I decided not to go out to celebrate Nick's mumbled words, and I stayed home. My wife was visibly upset, and the fight escalated on both sides. I pointed out who paid half of Nick's expenses, and she pointed out that she raised him by herself for more than a decade. We both said stupid things. To be clear, I didn't say the celebration was stupid or unnecessary. I just pointed out it was unusual and not a traditional thing people celebrate. That's it. I think she was drowning in a glass of water, and the situation was stupid and escalated out of nowhere. It's not that crazy to not want to go out and celebrate, isn't it? Needless to say, her entire family thinks I'm the asshole ACC. I don't want to make this a big deal. Edit. People read a less than 3000 character post and think they know your entire life. Jesus. I misspoke 3 times. 1. Non-speaking is the correct term too. When I said, "what my wife tells me," I meant the definition of non-speaking and why Nick was diagnosed that way. Of course, I communicate with Nick on a daily basis. I've been in his life since he's 12, I love and support the kiddo. We've shared a home for 4 years and he's my stepson FFS3. When I said, mumbled his words, I didn't mean it in a derogatory way, just wanted to be clear that they weren't super clear words. Edit 2. Did Nick want to go out that night? Yes. Nick always gets excited to spend time with his aunt and grandma. He was happy and in a great mood that day. Why was I in a bad mood? I had a rough week, truly a hard week, and Friday nights are usually my time to get some rest. It was a bad day per week for me, and I said the wrong things. I don't hate my stepson. Nick is my son. Nick is our son. I was making a distinction to make the context clear. When I introduce my family, I don't even mention he's my stepson. I introduce Nick as our son. To be crystal clear, I'm proud of Nick and his achievements. I do believe it's worth celebrating. I just didn't feel in the mood to do so that day. If that makes me an asshole, I'm okay with it, but don't fucking pretend you know me or my family or that know what I've done to support them. I love my family. Point blank period. Your wife waited 17 years to hear her child say he loves her. She probably thought it would never happen, and it is worth celebrating. Seeing how joyful it made your wife should have been enough for you to want to celebrate it, too. You are the asshole. I decided not to go out to celebrate Nick's mumbled words. Your verbiage here reveals what you really think about what was, to your wife, an important milestone. You are the asshole. You are the asshole. His first words were, "I love you," at the age of 17. Of course your wife was happy as a good mother and wanted to celebrate. But bohu, you didn't want to go out on a Friday night, so acted grumpy at dinner. You don't seem very mature. Apologize to your wife. This is something that was unexpected for Nick. Having a nice family dinner to celebrate isn't too much to ask. Also, bringing this up? I pointed out who paid half of Nick's expenses. That has nothing at all to do with Nick's accomplishment. It's what pushed me even more to thinking you are the asshole. You are the asshole. To be clear, I didn't say the celebration was stupid or unnecessary. No, you just overtly showed that you think that. Your infant daughter saying her first words is not the same event as a 17-year-old with disability speaking his first words. The two events are not the same thing. You know that. Am I the asshole for refusing to share my family's cookbook with my half-sister? My mom's grandma started a cookbook before she had kids. My grandma inherited it off her when grandma started having kids, and then my mom got it before she had me. My mom gave it to me when she was sick. I was 7 at the time, and died soon after. She told me to be careful with it and that it was special to our family. A couple of years after she died, I learned my dad had cheated on her with his wife and that my half-sister was the product of the affair and born before my parents' divorce was finalized. I was too young to realize when it was all going on. After learning this, I had a hard time being around my dad. I remember my mom being sad, and it made sense why. I also learned that he had told my mom in a really cruel way. How I found out is I eavesdropped on a fight between dad and my uncle and aunt, my mom's siblings, and heard it all, including how much my dad hated how boring my mom was. I remained distant from him, his wife and my half-siblings ever since. I have 2 more half-sisters and a half-brother. My dad decided to tell the oldest of my half-siblings about the cookbook. He mentioned how much I valued it and all kinds of stuff. She wanted to share it with me, to cook from it, and to get to write in it like I will someday. She pestered me about it, and every time I told her no. Then her parents would tell her more about it. In the end, she was upset and sobbing over being told no. I had told her it was something special from my mom's side and I wanted to keep it private until I have children. That wasn't good enough because she insisted we're family and she's my sister. My dad and his wife were angry with me. My dad's parents also told me I should have shared it with her and that I'm being cruel to her when my mom isn't alive to care if the child born from the affair gets part of the book or not, but she could be closer to me because I share it with her. I don't really care about my dad or his wife's opinion. I have no respect for them. They're pieces of shit in my eyes. But my grandparents and I always got along okay enough. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. And give the book to your aunt or uncle for safekeeping. Before it goes missing, is destroyed or edited. Not the asshole. But you need to hide that book somewhere safe because they will take it. If you are able, get a bank security box and put it there. I had a similar issue with a cousin who demanded I give her every cookbook, every index card, and clipping of my grandmother's vast collection. I said no. Went on deployment and came home to an empty pantry. I was told I didn't need them overseas. Never saw them again. Thankfully, my dad had scanned and put them all on a hard drive years before this. But it isn't the same. Joke's on her, though. The one cookie icing recipe she wanted to find she couldn't. Grandma never wrote it down, and I was the only one she made it with. Not the asshole. If they won't leave you alone, it's time to get tough. You aren't my mother's daughter. You aren't my mother's family. If she were here she wouldn't think of you as family. The truth is that the cookbook is mine and is a cherished memory of my mother. I don't want to share my mother with you. I don't want my mother's memory jumbled up in the mess that is our family. Even if I was open to sharing it with you, to let you use it or contribute to it is beyond disrespectful to my mother's memory. If you want a family cookbook, start one with your own mother. Leave mine alone. If that conversation brings up any questions, ask Dad why my mother wouldn't like you. Not the asshole. And #X200B. Something special from my mom's side and I wanted to keep it private. Nuff said.